William, your videographer from Two Hats Publishing. Welcome to the College of Complexes, being held at Barbeck's Restaurant at 8949 Garland Road, Dallas, Texas. Gently embracing the east side of White Rock Lake. When I entered, I was greeted like coming home to Grandma's house, warm and friendly. When visiting the Barbeck's Restaurant, tell them you want your reservations for the next College of Complex class.
Well, welcome to the College of Complexes. This is our 211th meeting since we started. We started in February 29th of 2009. It's been a while. Actually, this started in Chicago in 1951 for the purpose of solving all the world's problems. They're still working at it. But we put a speaker on every week, a different subject. We require our speaker to take a position on an issue, express a point of view. They have to be for or against something. We don't care what it is. And that's the purpose of this meeting. Anyway, we give our speaker an hour to make a presentation. Take over an hour, we cut him off. And if anybody interrupts the speaker, we remind the interrupted. We have one of our rules. We only listen to one fool at a time. So only one fool at a time. It's one of the rules. And we have another rule we also enforce, and that is, no personal attacks. Don't attack the speaker. No personal attacks. Attack the subject, don't attack the speaker. So we give after our speaker speaks, we have questions and answers, and then we have remarks, rebuttals. Everybody in the audience that wants to gets 5 minutes at the podium to respond to what the speaker said, for or against. And then our speaker gets the last word, gets a comment and close the meeting. That's how it works. Before we go any further, though, are there any announcements? Now's the time for announcements. Anybody have any announcements that they want to make? Anything? What's that? Oh, well, I'll announce that. Yeah.
Tell them that we're going to have a timer.
Yeah. She's got to time Susie's going to time them. 5 minutes is what you.
Well, good evening to everybody. Glad to see you all out tonight. I just wanted to take a brief moment and thank the folks here at Barbeck's for taking good care of us. We appreciate that. They make the dining room back here available to us without us having to pay a meeting room fee, and therefore having to charge everybody more to come in the door. And that's an appreciated fact. I know you all appreciate it just as I do. I just want to remind you that we want to order something from them when we come in. Feed the kitchen some money. And even if you don't get very much, we'll be generous to our server who comes back and serves all of us at the same time and has to juggle everything at one time and try to keep us all happy. So thanks again to the folks at Barbeck's for taking good care of us, and just to remind you, turn around and take good care of them too. I think that's fair pay, don't you? That's right. Reciprocity.
Okay, any other speakers? Anybody announcements? Do you have any announcements, Susie? No announcements? Okay. Next week we have, just for what it's worth, we have it's on Escape from Al Qaeda and Where We Go From Here. It's on the sheet I handed out. Jim and Joanne Moriarty, American patriots who lived in Libya years prior and during the airstrikes in 2011, will discuss being captured by and escaping from Al Qaeda, the truth about the NATO strikes, the fall of Gaddafi in Libya, the turmoil in Egypt and Syria, and who is behind it. The facts surrounding 9/11 attack in Benghazi and where we need to go from here. So this is where that's at. They rather than hide in the shadows, as directed by the U.S. agencies, Jim and Joanne Moriarty have chosen to tell other Americans the truth about our government's involvement and the corruption that exists in our dealings with other countries. At personal risk of complete financial destruction, they are speaking out. So it should be good. That's next week, for what it's worth. Now, tonight, our speaker, at 4:30 this afternoon, I was called by Craig Holslaw was standing here to tell me that Kesha Rogers had a problem with her mother's in the hospital, and she had to go to the hospital in Houston, and it's one of those traumatic things. Anyway, he can tell you more, and so he's going to talk in her stead. But I'll put down here what she was going to talk about. U.S. Senate candidate Kesha Rogers was going to talk about the outline for the future. Kesha Rogers, who made a recent political history by twice winning the Democratic primary nomination for Congress in Texas' 22nd District, Fort Bend and Brazoria counties, south of Houston, is now seeking the Democratic Party nomination for U.S. Senate to challenge incumbent Republican John Cornyn. Kesha's victories in 2010-2012 were accomplished by directly opposing the Wall Street corruption of the party leadership and the Wall Street discussed agenda of President Obama himself. As a member of economist Lyndon LaRouche's National Policy Committee, Kesha will outline her strategy to complete the unfinished missions of Presidents Franklin Roosevelt and John F. Kennedy to crush Wall Street, to halt the deadly march towards thermonuclear war, and to reach across the Pacific to establish new positive course for human progress, restoring JFK's future-oriented vision, emphasizing global collaboration in all fields of scientific discovery. Will also revive the Democratic Party, but otherwise, in her view, has lost its way. So, without further ado, Craig Holslaw is our speaker tonight, and he also, you can introduce the other fellow. There's two of them here. And Hector.
We're going to try to hook up Kesha a little later on a speaker system, and it might work and it might not.
All right, well, come on up here.
Okay.
Cheers.
Now, I want to start with that introduction from the way Lyndon LaRouche would put it, from the top down. What Kesha was referring to about John F. Kennedy's vision for the future and East-West collaboration, I want to put it in, frame it in what's in the leaflet with Kesha's face on it that she put out for New Year's. LaRouche calls this the historic battle between Prometheus, the immortal who stole fire from the gods and from Zeus, and Zeus. And unfortunately, most Americans are living and accommodating to Zeus. And what is now occurring is a historic shift where the nations in Eurasia have decided not just to accommodate and live under and chafe under the rule of the imperial Olympians of London and Wall Street, but to break definitively with Wall Street and London. They're now moving towards this and towards a future of sovereign nations where every individual can be treated as a creative being, which is the intention of the United States, which we haven't been living up to. So, first of all, let me ask you this. Is there anyone here who doesn't know what I'm referring to about Prometheus against Zeus? Is there anybody who doesn't know about that?
Us.
Okay. So, the myth, which LaRouche says is the fundamental reality of civilization, is that Prometheus, seeing that Zeus was about to wipe out the human species because he thought they were getting too uppity, the head of the gods, supposedly, stole fire from the gods, gave it to man, and also gave them language. There's a famous play about this called Prometheus Bound by Aeschylus, but there's many other sources on this. What this refers to is the historic fight represented by creative reason and civilization that represents creative reason, represented by Prometheus, and an oligarchical feudalist elite that says we're superior beasts, they're inferior beasts, and if we don't like them, we can wipe them out and start over again. This is what, of course, we have today in London and Wall Street. So what LaRouche is saying, and what Kesha emphasizes in this leaflet you have in your hands, is that there are two systems now before the world. And we cannot live, as Lincoln put it, half slave and half free. One is the system of what America used to be, which China, Russia, Ukraine, South Korea are now pursuing against imperialism for fundamental scientific progress for all their citizens. This is the system of Prometheus, not just stealing fire from the gods, but developing humanity as something independent of a ruling oligarchy. No, that's not the trickster. That's somebody else. You're confusing the mythology there. Prometheus was the pre-Christ Christ. So what we're talking about is someone who was willing to be tortured immortally. I'm not going to give you all the details of the Prometheus details, but he was chained to a rock. An eagle came and ate out his liver every day. And Prometheus refers to foresight. And this is the profound connection between the idea of creativity, the development of fire in human beings and science, and the idea of thinking ahead about what humanity needs and what creativity has to apply itself to for future generations. And Zeus wasn't just angry at Prometheus for stealing his fire and allowing mankind to survive his wrath. Zeus was angry at Prometheus because Prometheus knew how Zeus was going to be doomed and brought down. And I'm not going to give you the details of that. But today we have an oligarchy that thinks they're the gods of Olympus, and they're coming down. And they intend to take us with them, and we intend to be the Prometheans, to bring them down and not be going down with them. There's many historical references you can make to the same parallel. But Prometheus intends to bring down Zeus. The Christians brought down the Roman Empire, and the people who believe in the true mission of the American Constitution intend to bring down the Wall Street and London corporate cannibals today. Now, to start from the top, what Kesha was referring to about East-West collaboration. Now, LaRouche is 91 years old, and he's been fighting the people who shot John F. Kennedy when I was in 5th grade for 50 years. I'm going to get to in a minute to what we're doing to bring down Zeus. But first I want to emphasize, and I had a discussion with Kesha, and this is what she wanted me to emphasize, what Prometheus is for, what Americans need to be for. And what Americans need to be for, and this is what has profoundly excited LaRouche as well as any other thinking person around the world. Why did China send a rover to the moon and is preparing to a series of missions to explore the geology of the moon for many different kinds of mining? Does anybody here know what the major mission is of these rovers and what they intend to mine for the future? It's called helium-3. Helium-3, I'm not going to explain the physics of it here, is the major fuel for the next step in energy for the human species, which is nuclear fusion, which will allow us to run the whole economy on hydrogen, neutralize nuclear waste, vaporize any mountain of garbage we want and turn it into the constituent elements, and many other wonderful things, which if John F. Kennedy hadn't been shot when I was in 5th grade, we would have already had developed by the year 2000. So China intends to realize the scientific progress mission for humanity by developing nuclear fusion with other countries and having the means to develop what is not available on the Earth. And I bumped into a geophysicist yesterday who said, yes, I've been looking for helium-3, and we can't really find much of it on the Earth, but it's all over the moon. I'm not going to explain why, but it has to do with the sun radiating certain elements on the moon and producing this wonderful, very light, but it's solid in the form of helium-3 on the moon that can then be fused to create a miniature sun on the Earth. Literally, we can hook up a sun without heat exchange to produce a current, which is relatively infinite energy. Now, this is what Lyndon LaRouche has seen and fought for. Everything in his life that he's fought for, and all of his collaborators have been fighting for a vision of the future where children will grow up with the idea that they are not subject to limited resources run by cannibal oil companies or other corporations that is telling them, we are running out of resources, so you have to step on your neighbor if you want to get ahead. Once you develop nuclear fusion as a reality, there's a giant social change in the identity of every human being that will be irreversible. So no one will be a slave of Zeus anymore. Zeus will no longer have the monopoly on fire, if you follow me, right? So that's the mission of China, and there's a lot more to say about that, which we can go through in the question and answer period, about the progress of humanity through energy flux density and how what seemed to be a rock, coal, or sticky pollution, oil, or another dead rock, uranium, because mind can be superior to matter and harness that matter to develop it for humanity and for increasing energy flux density. We have the revolutions we have, but we can't have those revolutions if Zeus is running our political system. So, I want to get to the two things that Kesha is going to be doing with her campaign that are the positive directions. I'll get to putting Wall Street in jail and stopping World War III in a minute. But this is more important. She's going to hold a concert in Houston, Southwest Houston, near Martin Luther King's birthday, to celebrate, and this is part of a series of concerts, and the last time I was here, and there's some people here who weren't here the last time I was here, we talked about the moral, strategic, anti-imperialist heritage of John F. Kennedy, why he was killed, not so much who killed him, but why he was killed, what he was doing in the 50s. I'm not going to get into that. But we're holding a series of concerts of young people, Hector and other people who are the youth, young people like Kesha in LaRouche's movement. We held a concert on November 22nd, the 50-year anniversary of Kennedy's assassination, celebrating his life by performing Mozart's Requiem in a church in Vienna, Virginia, 750 people there. We hope to have even more people at a 50-year anniversary on January 19th, which is a Saturday in Boston, where they actually did that 50 years ago, January 19th, 1964, with Jackie Kennedy there, the same piece. Now, in the middle of this piece of music, after the Lacrimosa, we had John F. Kennedy speak for himself in excerpted gems from some of his speeches, what his vision of the future was for developing water projects that would transform the U.S. economy, developing higher and higher levels of safer nuclear energy for developing the U.S. economy and future generations. And, of course, the space program speech, which many people are familiar with. And you didn't have to indict Bush, Obama, or anybody else. You just had to hear John F. Kennedy speak from the past to the future. Because this is the future that we let be robbed from us. It wasn't just them killing Kennedy. We let it be robbed from us. And the music is the music of Mozart, and this is what we're going to be doing in January, is Bach, Mozart, and the spirituals of the civil rights movement, sung by her supporters in a concert in Southwest Houston. We're not going to have a big orchestra or sing any long piece by Mozart. We can't put that together. But the idea is, as Friedrich Schiller, the poet who wrote the Ode to Joy in Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, said emphatically, there is no political freedom without a beautiful culture. Without beautiful classical culture and everything that comes with it, there's no way you can educate people's emotions out of their rage and eros to do the good. You can't do it by scolding people and telling them to go to church. So, the idea is to celebrate that Promethean, creative, joyful identity with this concert. That's her campaign for Senate. And the idea, of course, is to get as many young people as possible participating in this concert. The second event she's going to hold on February 15th is put together by scientists involved with what is called the strategic defense of the Earth. That is, it's the anniversary, exactly a year ago, February 15th. Does anybody know what happened in Chelyabinsk, Russia? Chelyabinsk, Russia. Chernobyl is not near Chelyabinsk, and they might sound the same. Chelyabinsk, Russia. It was a meteor, yeah, and out of the blue, a meteor hit, and if it had been a little bigger, it would have obliterated a whole section of Russia. Fortunately, it blew up in the sky and didn't hit the city, and went over the city and hit the lake. And these tens of millions of meteors are now, we're entering a place in the galaxy, the solar system is entering a place in the galaxy, which is the same place in the galaxy where big meteors and maybe comets, we don't really know, helped to wipe out the dinosaurs. And anyone who says that the space program, well, we went to the moon, we already been there, you know, we don't really know. Well, let's just send some things out and play around with this, and we might have some fun, and it costs too much to do this, we have too many problems on Earth. Anybody who's saying that is ignoring the fact that the human species could be wiped out very soon if we cannot detect and divert these objects. This is much more devastating than World War III. So, the scientists involved in that have been invited by Kesha. She's the only candidate on the planet who is saying that this is an issue. And she's not just doing this to say, look, Obama's wrong for shutting down the space program, which is the case. But she's inviting scientists, including some kind of participation from other nations, to say, here's what we need to be for to replace this oligarchical system with. And exciting, again, young people to say, let's develop the space program, not just because we've got to shoot down asteroids, but we need to have a mission for the future that will not allow just humanity to survive, but thrive. And in case you don't know, nuclear fusion, which is what I started out with, is going to be the next propulsion to get from here to Mars in a few weeks instead of most of a year. So I wanted to stop those remarks there and talk when we hopefully can get Kesha on the phone. Right now she's driving in this family emergency, she had to go back. I want to talk next about what we're doing there's a revolution going on for Glass-Steagall. We spoke here before. I spoke, and I spoke last time about Glass-Steagall, to cancel the bailouts and put the owners of Obama and Bush in Wall Street in jail. We have a terrible increasing danger, in spite of the success in stopping the Syria war, and so far, in spite of some crazy neocons in the Senate, beginning to solve the situation with Iran. We're still, because of the intention of Wall Street and London and the compliance of Obama, we're still on the brink of a thermonuclear showdown with the countries of the East who do not want to submit to bullying. So we have to wreck Wall Street, stop World War III, and there's no way if Obama is not just spying on people, but serving Wall Street and Zeus, there's no way we're going to do that without removing Obama. So that's what I wanted to just summarize, and then hopefully we're going to get Kesha on the phone. Now, the plug is here. I'm going to call up Kesha and see if I can get her on the phone. Otherwise, I'm going to keep imitating her. Hello, Kesha, are you ready? There's about 20, 25 people here. Okay, so I gave an introduction talking about what Prometheus is for. I really haven't gotten into how we bring down Zeus except to mention, the basic ideas. And I talked about the concert you're going to have and the February 15th event briefly. Are you ready? I'm going to try to plug this speaker in now. We've got some big speakers here. I'm going to try to plug it in and see if it works. Okay? Are you ready? Okay. She's traveling, so the signal may not stay. She's not driving, somebody else is driving. Okay.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Hello there, everyone. This is Kesha Rogers, and I am so sorry I couldn't be there with you guys to speak to you in person. I had a family emergency that came up, but nonetheless, I am here on the phone, and as Craig has gone through, we are in the middle of a moment for mankind where the two crossroads before us changes everything that we think about politics. And, my campaign, working with Mr. LaRouche and working with this organization for the past, 10 years that I've been in, running 2 congressional nominations on the platform of saving NASA and teaching Obama, has always stood out front to popular opinion and to what is so-called politically correct. We have to throw politically correct out the window. I think Craig has given you a sense of the fact that right now, the Prometheus principle of mankind, the ideas of progress, of development, scientific improvements for our nation is what is needed. The artistic, creative qualities of mankind are what we're seeing right now, coming from China, coming from Russia, to buck the oligarchy, to buck Wall Street, and to buck the system which says that human beings should be treated as nothing more than cattle. And right now, I've been traveling throughout the state, particularly for the last couple of days in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and talking to representatives really on both sides of the aisle, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Independent, whatever you are, because right now this nation has to actually, this nation has to be restored to the ideas which brought everyone together, which was embodied by President John F. Kennedy and Franklin Roosevelt. We have to return to a coalition of the producers. And in the state of Texas, studying some of the great historical figures from Texas, particularly in the Democratic Party, that went against Wall Street very forcefully. People such as Henry B. Gonzalez, and Jim Wright, and Ralph Yarbrough, people such as those who stood beside the JFK-FDR principle to throw out the Bush apparatus and the policies for free market, free trade, deregulation, and who were instrumental in shutting down Glass-Steagall. That apparatus has to be brought down now, and we have to restore the scientific, industrial, agricultural productive powers of our nation. And I'm 37 years old. I have led this fight, winning 2 congressional nominations, standing on that platform, despite the fact that I was shunned and ostracized and given no support from the Democratic Party. Standing up and doing what President John F. Kennedy once said in his profiles and courage, that always do what is right, regardless of whether it is popular. And right now, we can actually turn this country around. We have both parties that are being controlled by the policies of Zeus, which is population reduction, taking away the livelihoods of the population, and going along with Wall Street. Wall Street has to be bankrupted. We have to restore Glass-Steagall banking reorganization now, and I understand we've had some of my colleagues speak to you before on Glass-Steagall and the importance of that, and I've been in Washington, D.C., and all across the state organizing for the restoring of Glass-Steagall. And I can tell you now that this campaign is going to be the spearhead for changing the political discussion in this nation. You know, this is one of the first campaigns, and I can tell you, most people aren't looking at the Texas Senate race. That's not up on the high spectrum of political debate and on what people are looking at in terms of hot races. But I can tell you, when I get through, it's going to be the #1 race in the nation because we're going to put on the table the real discussion that has to be had. We're going to stop playing around with single issues and get the fact that, hello, can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sir. Stop playing around with single issues because those are nothing but symptoms of a problem. We have to go after the real problem, and we're in the middle of a financial dictatorship with a president who is running wreck shop over the Constitution and has to be impeached now. And we have to restore in our society, in our population, again, the courage to fight, to demand a real solution to this crisis. And that solution has to start with people understanding their truly human identity, that the policies of Wall Street, the British Empire, and so forth is to destroy this nation's republic, its constitution, and everything that we stand for. And I've been working with LaRouche, as I said, for about 10 years. I have a colleagues, a team of candidates who are going to be running on this same platform. My campaign will make sure that throughout the election period, going to change the stuff. We're going to actually make the subject of discussion the nature of mankind, the nature of our republic, which is being destroyed by those who want to depopulate the planet. And so that's what it means by what Craig was discussing earlier on this principle of the two worlds before us. One, we don't want to be a part of because it's going down. The Wall Street bailouts, the transatlantic system, the continuation of the destruction of the sovereignty of nation states and the sovereignty of our republic has to be done away with. That which is in the interest of increasing mankind's productive power over nature, and that means our space program, the full funding of NASA. That means the mining of helium-3 so that we can actually start really taking up how we're going to feed our population, how we're going to make sure that we have adequate water supply for the drought-ridden areas of Texas and throughout the United States. We can do these things with programs like the North American Water and Power Alliance. We got to have a fusion economy. We have to have a productive economy that advances based on nuclear power, based on, doing away with the anti-scientific, anti-productive green environmentalist policy. And that policy is in line with the anti-human Zeus factor that take creativity away from man. And so this may not be what Craig is saying and what I am saying, may not be what you're used to hearing in the Fox News or the, news words that want to dumb down people. I'm not talking to you from the standpoint of wanting to dumb you down or wanting to talk to you about political correctness. We're not in a moment for political correctness. We're in a moment for people to stand up and defend this nation against oligarchy, against a financial dictatorship. And that's why, I'm speaking to you today. That's why I felt it was important, even though I couldn't be there, to actually tell you who I am and why I need your support. Because we're going to kick Wall Street out of this nation, out of both parties, and we're going to actually restore a truly productive economy based on what the principles which our nation was founded on, the principles that are adherent to the Declaration of Independence and the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. So I'll stop there because I don't want my phone to die on you guys here. And I'm sure that Craig can take other questions, and you guys can go to my website at KeshaRogers.com. You have some material there. And I will personally extend an invitation for you all to come to our concert that we're going to be having on the 25th of January, and also our space conference that we're going to be having on the 15th of February. So thanks a lot.
Okay, Kesha, signing off. So, I just want to say a few more things, and then I think it's better, like we did before here, to take questions. Now, let me just remind me, Tom, now, do we have 20 minutes and then they go to questions, or can I just cut it short first? The questions come after the 20. Okay, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We just have to be out of here by 8:40. Yeah, we timed it.
Okay. So if you understand what Kesha's saying here, this is the first national race of 2014. This is not about the game played by the media to have the Tea Party reactionaries against the liberal reactionaries. And we all have little opinions about whether minimum wage should be raised or not. There's not going to be any minimum. Obama has put more people on minimum wage than any president in U.S. history, and they just admitted this week that a much higher rate of black people are now leaving the labor force, and the unemployment rate's going down, not because more people have jobs, but because less and less people, more and more people have given up even looking for work, okay? Not to mention the unemployment, fakery with the non-extension of unemployment benefits, which they're still arguing over. The key solution that Kesha's presenting, and this is why this race is so important, before the euro crashes and the stock market comes down 10,000 points and the people behind Obama put on their Hitler mustaches and get more dictatorial, we must have a positive solution on the table to create productive jobs. Not to say, we don't like spying, we don't like this, we want money from this or that. You have to have a Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy recovery program that will build water projects, train lines, and power plants. And that's what's outlined in her program there, and it's on the website. You can't do this if you don't have 3 levels of a counter-conspiracy, if you will, the Promethean counter-conspiracy. The first level is that you've got to get 5% of the people to do what happened when we stopped Obama's war with Syria, and that is to stand up for the Constitution instead of saying, oh, this can't be done, they're too powerful. If Obama has already issued orders to the military to bomb Syria and it might start World War III, there's really nothing we can do. Some people stood up with our counter-conspiracy and stopped that when it seemed impossible because they decided to act for their grandchildren. And the majority of people stayed home and watched football, which is what's been happening in most of the recent elections. So here's what happened. I told people about this when I was here last, but I'm going to remind them because not everybody had it. There was a meeting in the White House of Jamie Dimon, Lloyd Blankfein, and these people, the ghouls of Wall Street, who, look, if Chase Manhattan has to pay $20 billion in fines, $2 billion last week because they helped Bernie Madoff, and the executives, after they paid the fine, admitted that they did something illegal to help Bernie Madoff. What is jail for but to put these guys in jail? But they aren't going to jail because Obama and his Justice Department are protecting his contributors. And the Republicans have no intention, for the most part, of touching these people, right? So they had a meeting in the White House. This is about October 2nd, the week that the government first shut down in the beginning of October. About 40 CEOs. And they basically met with Obama, and they said, look, we must continue and expand quantitative easing, and no one should be confused about Janet Yellen because she's the inventor of a system to index Social Security downward. I forget the name of it, but chain CPI, right? Thank you. She's the inventor of that, and she's put in charge of the Federal Reserve. So she's not some liberal who's nicer than Bernanke, okay? She works for the ghouls of Wall Street. She just, maybe you can actually understand her as opposed to Greenspan. I don't know, maybe she'll try to compete with Greenspan, right? But the idea is that these people met with Obama. They said, we have to continue quantitative easing and impose bigger and bigger cuts. But they also said to Obama personally, if you don't stop Glass-Steagall, terrible things could happen to us, like going to jail, and you, President Obama, will be way out on a limb. In other words, he could be impeached. So if Goliath says this is the slingshot, and there's now 79 congressmen backing our bill, there's several different bills, they're listed on our website, for Glass-Steagall. You protect the local banks, you put all the crooks through bankruptcy, you bail out nobody, the quantitative easing is over, and then you free up the resources that they're now using to bail out crooks to launch a real productive recovery program. I'm summing it up quickly, but that's what LaRouche has been talking about for years, and that's the basis of, that's why Kesha got 80,000 votes last year. She is modest, so she didn't say that. She got 80,000 votes against Pete Olson, whose chief of staff is a former millionaire executive for Chase Manhattan, who is loaned as the chief of staff to run this cute little Ken doll called Pete Olson, who replaced Tom DeLay. He's not as smart as Tom DeLay. But that's who she ran against. She didn't win because it's a Republican district, but she really made a name nationally, and every Texas congressman, if she walks in the room, is afraid of her. And that's good, right? The idea is you have to have Glass-Steagall. We have to get some Davids to say, okay, we got to bring down Goliath because he's going to kill us. And most people don't want to be David. Most people want to collect their money from the 16,000 point Dow and complain about Obama or complain about the Republicans and watch the country get ready to go over the cliff. And it's going to go over the cliff. The people who met with Obama in this meeting know that the euro is coming down, and they say it to each other. And if you read closely certain things in the London Economist and the Financial Times, and even in the Wall Street Journal occasionally, they hint at this. This whole thing is coming down soon. And the euro may blow it or other things may blow it, but it's coming down. So we have to pull the plug on Zeus by stopping the bailouts and putting these guys away. Number one, that's the first plank of Kesha and LaRouche's program. End the Enron, Bernie Madoff fake economy that is killing people, and that Obama is the full enforcer of when he and the Republicans sit there and they say, oh, Ted Cruz, he wants to stop Obamacare. His wife works for Goldman Sachs. So what does he do? He shuts down the government, and then they make a deal to cut veterans' benefits 20%. Now that certainly cured us of Obamacare, didn't it? Right? Now, we don't need this game anymore. So the second thing that is the focus of LaRouche right now, and Kesha, and there's a lot of articles coming out, are we in an inevitable confrontation with China? There's these competing empires. The Chinese have their empire, we have our. Isn't this like Britain and Germany in World War I? This is 2014, isn't this like 1914? Now, that's the fairy tale you're supposed to believe. If the world is based on competing nations. But if Zeus is manipulating this thing, it's not based on competing nations. It's based on the same people in London who orchestrated World War I and, in a different way, World War II, and just about every war since then. We don't need these wars. We sure didn't need any wars after the lies of 9/11. I'll get to that in a minute. What the issue is here is that they're trying to get Americans to see China as the enemy because the corporations got rich moving our jobs off there. Right? Now, wait a second. The Chinese are using some of the profit that they've made to actually try to start raising the living standard of their population and develop infrastructure. 20 years ago, LaRouche and his wife went to China and said, you can't keep working with Kissinger and these ghouls. You have to develop your people. And initially they didn't believe him. And he told them that there was going to be a crash in 1998 run by George Soros, who would wreck all the currencies of the so-called Asian tigers. And after that crash occurred in 1998, the Chinese elite started to pay attention to Lyndon LaRouche, which is why they're taking their surplus and investing it in infrastructure, water projects. They have more high-speed rail in China now than all of Europe or the whole world, right? And they built it since 1998 because the Chinese, for all of their cultural and political and moral problems, want to develop the future generations of their nation. And they're not our enemies. They can be an ally of us against the empire. So this comes down to what Bob Gates is now talking about. He should have talked about it a long time ago. He knows LaRouche very well, and he knows what LaRouche has been saying. And some people, not just Bob Gates, in our military and in the NSA, are now speaking out. And they're saying this is a George Orwell, 1980 war spy state that is manufacturing emergencies so they can take your freedoms. Why? Well, we have to bail out $704 trillion in debt of Wall Street and London, right? Now, Lyndon LaRouche, in January 3rd, 2001, gave a press conference. He had run for president in 2000, and he was asked by the Black Caucus, what's going to happen under Bush? Bush had just been put in by the Supreme Court, elected by the Supreme Court, if you remember. This is 2001, January 3rd, 2001. And LaRouche said they're going to go for emergency rule by precipitating, I forget the term he used, but terrorist incidents, so that they can actually have an excuse to have more dictatorship over the economy that they can't control. This is what he said in January 2001, many months before 9/11. Now, we didn't know who was going to do what in 9/11, but we knew that what the intention was of Zeus, and we said so, and we were right. And all these people who said, we got to go get Osama bin Laden, were lied to. Now, 28 pages of the 9/11 report. Bob Graham, Senator Bob Graham, who was on the 9/11 Commission, and a number of other people, wrote a report. And they said, in the report, in the 28 page, we know basically what it says. Here is this role of the Saudi monarchy in organizing the 9/11 terrorist incidents. It was classified by Bush, and Bush protected these people up and down. What is Obama doing? He promised the 9/11 families this would be released. Not only did he not release it, he's arming these people. I mean, the people who in Syria and around the world who the Saudis are arming to do terrorism right now against Russia. And the Russians aren't too happy about that because they know the role of the Saudis and Obama. So, there's a bill in the Congress, it's H.R. House Resolution 428. The congressmen who have actually read the 28, and all your people's congressmen, go to your congressman and say, you can read these classified 28 pages about who really did 9/11. Now, there's a lot more to 9/11 than these 28 pages, because there's still a lot covered up, right? But we didn't have to send our kids off to die anywhere. This was a fake. We could have sent a few Navy SEALs into certain places in Dubai and Riyadh and London and actually gone after the people who funded the terrorism, which certain people in our government knew who they were. And Bush had no intention in telling people the truth. So, this has got to be over. We don't need a spy state to protect us from fake lies. That the terrorism is real, but who's behind it? Right? So, the idea is House Resolution 428 means that they can't fake this anymore. They can't fake the NSA police state. They can't fake the wars. They can't fake any of this. It's over. We begin to open the door on these things. But why do they need these wars? Why do they need this spying? Why do they need this dictatorship? It's because of what I started out with. They have to impose horrific sacrifice worse than they are right now. And Obama is their puppet, and Bush was their puppet, and Obama is a worse puppet and a far more dangerous puppet because the emergency is far worse, right? So, the idea then is not that Obama is a bad personality. It's because of who he's a puppet of, and you're not going to change anything by simply being against Obama. You must have a Promethean, creative, Christian identity against Zeus. And that's where Kesha's coming from. That's why she's doing what I started out with, right? So, Ed Snowden, and I can't help laughing when I hear these people, who who are shocked about Snowden. This is what Lyndon LaRouche has been telling people since I joined this organization in 1974, that there's a British American corporate oligarchy that controls part of our police state. There's a famous book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. People here might have read it, about a guy who was brought into the security apparatus to advise various governments, and when Omar Torrijos and certain other people didn't go along, they were assassinated. And he says, here's what happens. They put the countries into debt, they enslave the countries, and this apparatus, which rules a corporate pirate police state, putting countries into debt and looting their resources over the third world, has come home to roost in America. This is what he says in his book. This is what Lyndon LaRouche has been saying since I joined this organization in 1974. And what Ed Stone is saying, the good thing about it, is that it means that nobody can say anymore, this is a crazy conspiracy theory that the GCHQ of London and the NSA and certain American corporations are spying on people worse than 1980. How dare you have that crazy conspiracy theory? We have freedom in America and people, watchdogs and all this other stuff. Well, Ed Snowden, we need a lot more people with his courage. And those are the people who are going to back Kesha Rogers and Lyndon LaRouche. And I'm hoping there's some people here who want to move with that. So, about 60% of the population are now erupting against this terrible situation. The rest of them are too oppressed or passive to think about it. But we can't have an explosion of violence in this country. We have to give people the slingshot to bring down Goliath. And Kesha's campaign is not about voting for me or personalities. It's about arming, especially young people, with a Promethean future. Not just against Zeus, but for the nuclear fusion fire. So, takes up the time. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go to the restroom and I'll be right back.
All right, be right back. Now we get to get this out.
Yeah, my name is Curtis. If I understood you correctly during your speech, you said that you quoted some unemployment statistics right now concerning the number of African Americans who are unemployed, and unemployment is worse now. And if I understood it correctly, you were blaming the president largely for the unemployment situation.
Not just the president, but
yeah, that's what I mean. My question is, what about his jobs bill that he has out there, infrastructure jobs bill, that he's put out there that Boehner won't even bring to the floor? Okay. So I think he deserves far more credit for trying to get the economy going than what he's being criticized for. His jobs, so what do you think about his infrastructure jobs bill that's out there that Republicans are blocking?
Okay.
My point is, I think he's done a lot more, trying to do a lot more to get the economy going than what he's being given credit for. Not enough emphasis is put on the obstruction. But my question, what do you think about his infrastructure jobs bill and the impact that would have if it was passed?
We're going to end this fake show right now. This is all fake. This thing about Republicans are stopping Obama, he can't, he's being forced to do things. How many years are you going to accept this? Excuse me. Okay.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
I'm off.
How many years are we going to accept this? Now, if Obama is taking orders from Wall Street to create horrific economic situations, who has lifted a finger to stop Union Bank of Switzerland from seizing 80% of the pension funds in Detroit? Who is making this an issue? Lyndon LaRouche is making an issue, and there's a few unions who are timidly saying, oh, this might be bad. Okay? Now, let's get to the meat of this thing here. Okay? If we had a real president, we would already have Glass-Steagall, and the people causing these horrific conditions would be in jail, number one. Okay? And then the Republicans would be humiliated, or they would be in jail. Okay? Because they're all complicit in taking money from the same people. Okay? So let's get this straight. We can't whine anymore and say Obama's trying. Let me. I'm answering the question.
Whenever you're ready, I'll ask the question.
Sure. Okay. All right. So here's the story. There's not going to be any infrastructure in this country if you don't first stop bailing out Wall Street. Obama has no intention of doing that, and he's made it clear. That's who he serves. So let's stop the fakery that Obama is different than the Republican crooks. They're all the same. We're not going to take one group of crooks because they have smiley black faces. That's why Obama was put in there to do something worse than Bush. That's why Hillary Clinton was knocked out and Obama was put in. So, go ahead.
I thought I was coming to a political debate, but I see I came to a comedy show. Because if most of the things you said have been very funny, it doesn't seem like you're trying to unify a Democratic Party at all. It seems like you're trying to fractionate it.
You're supposed to ask a question.
Yeah, your co-host has a question.
The question will come.
Okay, you don't have to speak in the microphone.
So my question is this. So my question is this. That's much better. My question is, how do we not make our Congress accountable? We have 3 levels of government. We have a legislative branch, we have an executive branch, and we have our Congress people in office. None of them have taken any responsibility for anything that's happened. None of them. I would want to say that if anything, the only person that's fighting has been Obama. He's the only one that's done anything. He's brought us Obamacare. He's done something that no one ever has. And you asked about Glass-Steagall. Quite frankly, our Congress is not even man enough to do what they've done, have not done, that they should have been doing. How do you expect this Congress to do anything about Glass-Steagall? You act like it's the president that's supposed to do this. We need a working Congress first. And quite frankly, the stuff that's coming out of this mouth and for this person that's running doesn't sound like someone that's ready to unify us. We are Texans. We're ready to unify with a Democratic Party that's willing to take us somewhere. This does not sound like that to me. We need a Congress put in place that will do something and we need to stop worrying about what Obama's doing and start worrying about what our Congress is going to start to do. So how do we do that? How do we make our Congress accountable to do their job? Because last time I saw, they took so much time off this past year, this past session, that they actually did nothing. They're obstructionists. Right. And this whole platform that I've seen right now, how does this not look obstructionist to you? How is this not
our platform?
How does it not look like it's not blame? How does it look like you're not passing the blame on to someone else? Because that's what it looks like.
We're blaming the Congress. Let's be.
Okay,
can I answer your question?
Let's do that, because 90% of what you've talked about has been Obama. It hasn't been about Congress. Please answer my question.
Okay. Let's get this straight. I'm going to repeat what I said that you didn't want to hear. The people who own Obama and the Republicans in the Congress are the same people, and they're all following orders. Period. We're unifying the people in both parties who want to live up to the Constitution, and we're freeing the slaves from Obama's plantation and Bush's plantation. And we're not going to have these slaves fighting each other anymore over, silly issues while they're being robbed and they're about to be killed. Look, let's get this straight. If you stand in the future of 2014 that we're talking about, nobody's going to be talking about unifying the Democratic Party and the Republicans. They're going to be saying, okay, the euro just crashed, the stock market went down 10,000 points, the food prices just tripled. How do we get out of this burning theater? They're not going to be they're not going to be listening to you if you're talking like you just talked. We have to have a calm voice in the burning theater to get people who are going to be panicked and angry and almost violent, and some of them are already violent, out of that burning theater. And I don't care what party you talk about. I'm an elected Democratic precinct chairman in Houston. Okay? Kesha won the Democratic primary 2 times. I mean, that's the Democratic Party, whether you like it or not. They voted for her. okay? And so we're uniting people for the good, not to defend one group of crooks against another group of crooks. Look, the Democratic Party in Texas was addressed by Lyndon LaRouche in the convention of 1980 here when he was running for president. And there were farmers outside with tractors. Carter had betrayed the farmers. He had supported Paul Volcker, who had raised the interest rates and destroyed the unions and the middle class and everything. And we were saying, Carter has got to go. We weren't supporting Reagan, okay? But we said, Carter's got to go. This is Wall Street. This is the Trilateral Commission of David Rockefeller. It's destroying the middle class of America on behalf of Wall Street. And some people in the Democratic Party, in the tradition of Henry Gonzalez, and I'm going to tell you something about the Democratic Party in Texas. When Lyndon LaRouche was indicted by Bush and sent to prison for 5 years, there was one congressman in the whole Congress who stood up in the halls of the Congress and put his arm around Lyndon LaRouche after LaRouche had been indicted and said, "You're my friend," and that was Henry Gonzalez. Because he had the courage of John F. Kennedy and these other people. And these other people are fake people. Now, they might be turned around if you kick them. But they're fakes. I mean, look, Sheila Jackson Lee and Gene Green and a whole bunch of other Democrats in Texas, not my congressman, are backing our Glass-Steagall bill. Now, they're not calling for impeaching Obama, but we're patient. At least they're turning against Wall Street and representing their constituents. So we're the people who are uniting the Democratic Party behind that. Okay.
Yes, I have a question. Is this on? Okay. I agree with some of the things you say, but what I was really waiting for, which I've not heard, is really a coherent plan to totally get this country. For example, what's the plan for a trade balance? What's the plan for creating jobs? What's the plan for creating a proper financial system? What's the plan for education? What's the plan for healthcare? And what are you going to do about wealth inequality? I mean, these are the things. Now, a lot of the stuff you said really, candidly, doesn't make sense. I'm not enamored by JFK. I think he took us into Cuba. He took us into Vietnam. It was that.
Okay.
Well, he did.
Let him speak. Let him speak.
He did. And it was that plus the oil that caused this huge inflation of the 70s. And that's what I think broke a lot of American industry, that Volcker, cured. We needed Teddy Roosevelt, not the other Roosevelt.
You're indicting yourself again. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. The other Roosevelt that you like so much in the 30s, he was the one that started the American imperialism.
Oh.
Right. Now, you can claim that it was Britain. It wasn't. We retreated from imperialism, but America stepped in full force. So the question is, do you have a plan that covers these things? I would ask any party, what your plans? Well, you can say, oh, we're going to crash Wall Street. We're going to crash the lady in London. That's not a coherent
The plan was outlined at the last meeting I was at, and I'm going to repeat it.
No, the other
I'm going to repeat the plan. I'm going to repeat it.
Okay, look, the other plan you have is infrastructure. That's, okay, that is not a plan for job creation at all. That's an asset creation, but not jobs and wealth. Okay. That's wealth creation, but not ongoing income creation.
Okay, now I'm going to go to those. If I miss some of the points, please remind me what they are. Okay, first of all, we have to have, after we put the crooks out of control of the Federal Reserve, we must have a national bank. This is outlined on our website. It's outlined in the literature I handed out here before, and we can't have every meeting. But you heard what I said at the last meeting, and it's kind of surprising to me that you would repeat the same questions that were already answered to you at the last meeting. Now, not everything has been covered in this meeting. Okay, so the idea is you have a national bank, so the credit is issued for productive job creation. It has to start with infrastructure, because if you don't have transport, energy, and power, you don't have production. Now let me tell people what I use to beat up stupid Texans all the time. Jesse Jones from the Reconstruction Finance Corporation issued $50 billion in credit and loans from the Reconstruction from 1933 to 1945. And a lot of it was for bailouts and war production. But they built infrastructure, and all that money was paid back. And the crime rate fell when they put the young people to work, not just in Texas. They built 6,000 reservoirs in Texas. All these people who say they're against big government in Texas drink that water and play on those lakes. There is only one natural lake in the state. Everything else was built by big government, and all the money was paid back. And when they put those young people to work, we paid for our teachers, police, and firemen. And that's what we have to do today. So you have to start with infrastructure, not end with it. Because if you don't have a platform, then you don't have most of West Texas. If you go to Midland, which I do, they get their water from dams built by Roosevelt. And when you remind them of this, they can't deny it. But they need a lot more water right now. Okay, so and now the health care, let me get to that, because Obamacare was written by the insurance companies. This is not a success. Obamacare is serving the insurance companies. Obama is promising giant new subsidies if so many people don't sign up to the insurance companies. It was written, who is the guy from the Northwest state who wrote the bill, he admitted that a woman who was an executive of an insurance company wrote the whole thing. All 1,000 pages was supervised by her to benefit the insurance companies who don't care if a lot of old people die early as long as they make the profit. That's the intention. Okay? And the other consequence of Obamacare is that a lot of doctors, when people get that insurance, aren't going to be there. They're not going to be, people are going to be lining up and the doctors won't be there. Now, we're for the single payer system, which John Conyers is for. There are many doctors who are for this, and there are many nations who are industrial nations who don't have the insurance companies and the banks running all their political parties who've already implemented that system. Very fine, thank you. So, there is a solution to the problem. That's the opposite of giving the insurance companies more cannibalistic power over every individual, which is what Obama did. This is not a solution. There is a solution, but you see, you can't have the single-payer system. And there's all kinds of people kind of playing game. They want a single-payer system so the government, not the insurance companies, can kill off the old people. No. We have to have a producer economy so people are paying into Medicare and Medicaid. Because if you don't have revenue, you don't have anything. You have to have a producer economy. We don't have a producer economy. 11% of our workforce produces something real. So go ahead. Well, I missed some of the points there.
Okay. What are you going to do about trading? How do you do that?
Well, the Chinese are offering a hell of a lot of money to build the tunnel under the Bering Straits and many more infrastructure projects in the United States, not just in Africa. So what we want to do is export nuclear fusion reactors, not things that we used to produce. And right now, if you talk to anybody, I was just talking to a guy who works for the railroad today. I said, what are we exporting? He said, raw materials. We're a third world country. And I said, you're exactly right. So what we have to do is go back to building up certain things that we, with a skilled labor force, that is, you take the unemployed or underemployed, super skilled machinists of the Midwest, and you put them to work building maglev trains, for example, in what were the auto plants, okay? Then people might afford to be able to buy automobiles, right? But right now they can barely afford to repair them. We have the remains of a skilled labor force, but we have to inspire young people. How many 10-year-olds do we have today who are ever going to leave their Facebook and want to work or produce anything?
Well, okay,
Does that make sense, what I said?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, I was going to answer. Okay.
I have a question.
You could be satisfied with that.
I have a question. You mentioned that the LaRouche movement had a 60%
approval rating in this country.
I didn't say that.
How many LaRouche
say that.
candidates serve in the U.S. Congress or the U.S. Senate?
That's
the gentleman earlier, you continue to blame Obama for anything, but the only power he has is the power to veto something. The Congress, which is controlled by the Republican Party.
So we're running people for Congress.
And how many of them do you have currently serving in the U.S. Congress, sir?
None.
None. How many do you have, LaRouche people, do you have serving in the U.S. Senate?
Congressman backing Glass-Steagall. Have you approached your congressman?
How many does it take to have a majority in the Congress, sir? It's not 79. I believe it's 220.
They need to be replaced.
And with your extreme views, you think that's going to happen, sir?
I think, sir, you're reacting instead of thinking about what I told you.
No, sir, I'm not
You're
at
just
all.
reacting. You're
I
not
can't.
thinking.
I've been a Democratic precinct chairman for 44 years, and you don't sound like any Democrat I've ever known. My mother ran the Kennedy campaign here in Dallas, and she certainly wouldn't have agreed with what you said.
We're revolutionaries. We're not yes men.
You're terrorists.
Oh, that's new. That's a new one. That's what George Bush called us. That's what Dick Cheney called us. Okay, that's enough of that. Okay.
I have a question,
Okay, that's enough of that.
and it's kind of like what he just asked. I don't understand how you can call yourself a Democrat or Kesha can, because I don't see, every day I'm around Democrats, I have never ever heard the kind of things that you're saying. Also, you have just offended a lot of people.
Maybe they need to.
Wait. So what? You know what? I think that you've been very condescending for people that don't believe what you believe in or don't practice what you practice. And I'm a little concerned that if your people get in, you're going to get rid of all the Democrats and you're going to get rid of all the Republicans, because you, and I've read about LaRouche and your characters, and you think that you're absolutely right. A minority of you want to take over and have, since 1970, you've been bullying and running over people. So my question is, how did you get to be why are you a Democrat?
Why did George Bush put Lyndon LaRouche in prison? I'm asking you a question.
No, I'm asking you a question.
Why was LaRouche put in prison by Bush?
Because he did something very bad.
So you're siding with Bush. Thank you. That case closed.
No, you asked me a question, I'll answer it.
Case closed.
No, you know what? You asked me a question. He committed a crime, and he got caught for it.
Ma'am,
he went through the whole
ma'am,
system.
this is why the Democratic Party has been enslaved by the Tea Parties. What you're showing me clinically is the reason why the Democratic Party has been losing and losing and losing, because they don't want to be of a party of John F. Kennedy and Roosevelt. They want to whine against Republicans.
And you know that. And
I'm
you
sorry,
know
I'm sorry, ma'am.
The FBI watched LaRouche for several years. They had the FBI.
So you're siding with the FBI, not just Bush.
I'm siding with the system. Yeah, if you want to ask me a question, let me talk. I know the answer. We have a system in our country that has a lot of checks and balances. LaRouche stole a bunch of money from people and took it and used it for his own gain and didn't pay people back for the money that he owed them. That's why he went to prison. You know what? He has a responsibility, and you have a responsibility to quit blaming us for everything.
I'm not blaming who?
Well,
I'm not blaming you.
You're blaming the FBI. You're blaming the system. You're blaming LaRouche got in trouble, and he's been, you're blaming the FBI.
Okay, can I answer your question?
Sure.
If you really believe that the system is not corrupt, if you really believe the system is not corrupt, if you really believe that Bush had a good reason to put Lyndon LaRouche in prison for 5 years, because he said we got to get rid of the Federal Reserve and not move our jobs off to China. He was the architect of the strategic defense. He said we have to develop nuclear fusion and have peace through development with Russia. This is why the advisor asked Sergei Glaziev, who wrote a book called Genocide, about how Wall Street raped and destroyed the population of Russia. He's a young economist who advises Putin. He's a personal friend of Lyndon LaRouche. Ask him what he thinks about what you just said. And my dear, it's not condescending to say it's foolish. It's not condescending to say it's foolish that you're thinking on such a small level.
I'm not talking, look,
It's not condescending. It's simply true.
I have an opportunity to read a lot about that case. There was a lot of old ladies that gave money because they were told
So
they
you
were
think
going
it
to
was justified for the FBI to visit people and say, we want you to testify against
not
LaRouche
answering
and we're
my
going to do
question.
terrible things against you?
My question.
Are you justifying a police state in this country?
You know what? You know what? Why am I even talking to you? Yeah.
Answer her question.
How?
Okay.
Why do you identify? Thank you. How do you identify as a Democrat? Like, what makes you more a Democrat than a Republican? Why aren't you a part of the LaRouche party?
The Democratic Party was founded by Andrew Jackson and Aaron Burr. They were a party of murdering Indians. They were a party of racist Ku Klux Klan until Roosevelt, for the most part. There were exceptions in certain cities and parts of this country, okay? When Roosevelt put together his coalition, which is our coalition today, it's labor, small business, farmers, minorities who want progress for their grandchildren who aren't defending some party game.
I get it.
Susie.
I just have this question. Can you name 3 things in the Texas Democratic Party platform that Kesha Rogers does support? Since you say that you're a Democrat and she says that she's a Democrat, what are just 3?
Are they for the single-payer system?
3 things in
Are
the
they for the single-payer
Democratic-
system? I'm asking you.
No, my question is not related
I haven't
to
memorized the
single
platform, but I know
payer.
something about it, and it's been rewritten. So,
Right.
are they for the single-payer system? Is the Democratic Party in Texas for it? I forget, because they were for it and then they changed it.
I asked you to please
Well, I'm telling you.
Democratic precinct chairperson.
We're for the single-payer system. I think they are.
3 things for the Democratic
We're for that. Okay.
Party
Okay.
platform.
We're for the single-payer system. We're absolutely in favor of expanding money for education on every level instead of cutting budgets. But you can't expand that education if you don't create revenue. You can't have Democrats competing with Republicans about how we're going to raise taxes and cut budgets instead of how we're going to create revenue to create jobs. So we're going beyond a platform just saying we're against budget cuts or we're for education, and we're saying here's how we create the revenue. Because we must have, you can't have 40 kids to a classroom in the first grade who can't speak English in the state. Okay? And I think most people who wrote that platform would agree with us, but they don't have a way to how to fund the teachers who need it. We do. And that's what John F. Kennedy and Roosevelt were for. And if people object to the revolutionary thinking of John F. Kennedy and Roosevelt, then who's the real Democrat and who's not?
Okay, so what's the 3rd one?
Name anything in the platform and I'll tell you what. I'm not going to.
You are putting yourself out there as a Democratic precinct chair, and I'd like to know what aligns you to the Democratic Party. What aligns Ms. Rogers to the Democratic Party?
Because we represent the people who want to see the future that John F. Kennedy intended when he was shot in 1963. We represent that future that John F. Kennedy intended when he was shot in 1963, which is to rein in Wall Street and have a credit system funding infrastructure and have a nation celebrating scientific progress in peace and cooperation with other nations instead of war.
My questions are going to be quick and short. The first is, did you camp?
Did I what?
Did you camp?
Count what?
C-A-M-P.
What do you mean?
Did I camp?
You didn't camp. Did you go to OWS?
I'm not sure what is this question.
So I hear you.
Occupy Wall Street? Are you talking about that?
I hear you, yes. Did
We
you
educated Occupy. We were there before they started
no, I'm
right in the
asking
streets.
you personally as a human. Did you personally camp?
No.
Did you personally go to New York?
Ma'am, I do something different every day of my life that's far
I'm
more
just asking that one time,
revolutionary than anything that.
2011,
Yeah,
just one
right.
time.
No, I didn't do that.
Okay. So I hear you giving a lot of the rhetoric of, something that's very dear and close to my heart. And those of the individuals here that know me, know that when you speak about something that I actually gave up my life and well-being for.
Okay.
So it's frustrating to me to have an individual who did not give up his well-being or his livelihood and speak the words that many of us sacrificed for. Now, at first, I felt like there may be some camaraderie between what you believe and what I believe or know to be true, and possibly what Kesha knows to be true. But as you began to speak more, it became clear to me that you are using the rhetoric of those that sacrificed their lives and their well-being to help progress this nation forward to your political advantage.
Okay.
So that's why your questions were, did you camp and did you go to New York?
What's your question?
Those were it.
Okay, let me respond to that. No, I want to respond to that because she implied that I have not risked my life, that I have not sacrificed anything, and I'm a comfortable political armchair commentator. I've been with Lyndon LaRouche since I was 20 years old. I'm 60 years old. I go out on the streets every single day and risk my life. No, not just 2011. You have not been doing, my dear, what I've been doing for 40 years. So please don't talk down to me as if you did something. It's good that what you did. I'm not saying it's bad that what you did. I'm saying that please don't tell me that I didn't do something that you did if I've been doing something different and also risking my life. But let me tell you something. A lot of my friends have been physically threatened. Some of them have died, and some of them have gone to jail for a long time. Okay, so we are not saying we're going to be comfortable and other people are going to go out and fight. We're the fighters for 40 years, for 50 years. I mean, okay, go ahead.
I have two questions. First, this fusion thing needs a little bit more substantiation for me. And why is LaRouche identified with so much? Why do we need them to have this technology come forward and bring us to the next level? That's the first question. Yeah.
Well, the helium-3 is the best fuel for nuclear fusion, but there's other ways to do it.
But how far advanced is it? I mean, how real is it? Is it science fiction, or why should I believe in it?
Fusion is very feasible, but the problem is the oil companies don't want it. The problem is the oil companies financed Earth Day 1970, and I walked to high school, and I was there, and I questioned a professor, and I'm getting to the answer to your question in a minute. I questioned the professor from the University of Syracuse who came to North Syracuse High School at that time, when he said the cause of pollution is there's too many people, so we have to reduce the population. And I said, why can't we make people more creative and clean up the environment and have more people so they can be more creative? Why can't we develop new technologies that can clean up the environment and actually make people more creative at the same time? Why do we have to get rid of people? Because isn't that the source of creativity? I was 16 years old. And that's why I'm in this movement.
I agree with all that.
Okay, but let me finish. Okay, so we have a movement created by the oil companies and other corporate pirates that has suppressed nuclear fusion. And we had a bill passed in 1980 in the closing days of the Carter administration that funded nuclear fusion at an adequate level. And then when Reagan got in, he submitted to the budget cutters and the oil companies, and fusion didn't get funded. So since we founded the Fusion Energy Foundation, that was our group. It was shut down illegally by Bush and closed down by the police in 1987. There's been incredible persecution and budget cutting done against the scientific community in this country that has said all along, if you fund it at this level, and we have several things on our website to go into detail with all the details in the documents, okay? If you fund fusion at this level, the research, we can get fusion in less than 30 years, probably 20 years. We can get some kind of commercial plant, okay? And they're still saying this, but that was more than 30 years ago because it's been suppressed and the funding has been almost nothing. And now Obama's cutting it because he said we need insulation, not fusion.
Okay, I have a second question, different subject. Are you familiar with CAFR, C-A-F-R, and Walter Burian's work?
Walter
Burian.
Just tell me what it is, and I don't think so.
It's an investigation of the comprehensive annual financial reports. It's an acronym, CAFR, and
I think I've heard of it, but
yeah,
I'm
you
not
might
really
want to
sure
look
what
into
the
that
significance
then.
is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think the message that you're delivering got a bit distorted. I don't know if it's me or you, but the first thing on your the poster there says impeach Obama, right? So presumably that's one of the top priorities of your candidate. Since that would be realized, or since that would take place in reality, how would that happen? What are specifically the charges that you would bring against Obama?
Okay. First of all, there's a lot of people like Bob Gates and Ed Snowden who have all kinds of dirt on Obama and the people behind Obama. Okay? Obama is a puppet. But the purpose of impeaching Obama, as I've been stressing all along, is not just to say we don't like this personality, he's a bad guy and he committed some individual crime. The crimes are as a result of him taking orders from his masters, and so we're going after the masters. That's why Glass-Steagall is the important thing to do first. Once you do Glass-Steagall, as his owners told him in this meeting I told you about in the White House, then Obama becomes very impeachable for doing an illegal war in Libya, for arming Al-Qaeda, for Fast and Furious, for all kinds of things. Now, we're not doing this because we're backing Republican crooks in the Congress who say they don't like Obama, who are doing scandals against Obama. We're doing this to rescue this republic and our Constitution. We're doing it for the same reason Ed Snowden did what he did.
It seems to me you would impeach whoever happened to be president at this point in time, whether it be Republican.
If they're taking orders from Zeus, yes.
Yep. Another question, my second question is, or with the presumption
But let me just answer that question, because that's an important question. You see, if we do this peacefully, without violence, then Joe Biden, if Obama is forced to resign when the truth comes out about him covering up the 28 pages in 9/11 and many other things, he could be forced to resign like Nixon, although he's probably got a bigger ego than Nixon, if that's possible. Then Joe Biden becomes president. That's the Constitution. And LaRouche has said very emphatically recently, he is confident, now don't ask me why, but he knows things that I don't know, that he would be able to support fully a Joe Biden presidency implementing the policy that we're talking about. That Joe Biden would be fully capable and willing, although not the most powerful personality, to implement the emergency policy we're talking. You see, I want you to think about this, because I don't think this has really sunk into people here. We're about to have a terrible cataclysm in the economy that's going to change everybody's life. This is not going to be typical politics. We're going to have to do something positive to deal with this crisis and not have a bunch of fake World Federation of Wrestlers faking it and saying we're fighting this party animal game. No more party animals. We're going to be dead. Go ahead.
The other question was, since politics is about building coalitions, okay, if once he's impeached, how will that build coalitions? I know
he's not going to be impeached by the Republicans because the Republicans will not do it. He's going to be impeached by Democrats.
To reframe that, since Kesha Rogers is running for a seat in the U.S. Senate, as a senator, she would have to build coalitions, would she not? Now, how do you see that happening, though? That is
She's meeting, when she's here, with leaders of labor unions, with other people representing businessmen who are in the Republican Party, with various young people's groups on campuses, and that's how she got 80,000 votes running for Congress in the 22nd District. She put together a coalition, and she was in the streets, and all these other people just buy TV ads with the money that they get from billionaires or millionaires. So she's not a fake. This requires a lot of street work, talking to people who've been disenfranchised, who are angry and pessimistic. And it requires going to institutions, the labor unions are a good example, who are very pessimistic, and some of them are bought off and their pension funds are in certain places in Wall Street and they don't want to challenge Wall Street, but now they're realizing they have no choice but to go back to the kind of policies that, you know, Roosevelt and John F. Kennedy and we represent. So we are building that coalition, but it may not include people who are living in the past. It requires that people live in the future, both the positive future and the very bad negative things that are about to happen, which many people apparently tonight don't really want to face fully, but they may face it. The next time we're here, I may get a more positive response.
I'm really surprised at the response when someone that's white can't stand Obama and there's an automatic assumption that you're a racist. I supported Alan Keyes when he ran against Bush because he was the only one that was saying something out of all the candidates, Democrat and Republican, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And how many Republicans miss W. They want to get rid of Obama, but they'd go back to.
They don't get it.
What?
They don't get it.
And then, and I just, and one comment, I don't think Obama's the worst president in history. I think he's number 3.
Okay.
I think Bush is worse than him and Lincoln was worse than him.
Oh, Lincoln. Okay, well, we're going to have to big disagree about that.
Anyway,
Wait, can I say something, though, about this? Because, look, we have a chance to do something we're not going to get another chance to do in your or my lifetime soon. And a lot of people are going to have to rise to the occasion and actually start thinking differently. And we're hoping that we can, it's very interesting. I just want people to reflect on this. The last time we were here, there was a different group of people. I'd say there's only about a third of the people who were here last time we were here this time. And we got a very interesting, much less contentious response. Not that I wasn't talking to people about the same things as this. I think that there's a different composition of people here tonight, and there's a certain reaction and defensiveness instead of actually thinking about what's about to happen to us and how we can deal with this by changing what we've been used to doing. And that's what I want to really leave you with, because we're going to have to be revolutionaries, not party people. Yes. By going along with it, and by taking, and by many. I mean, look, right now the Congress is actually the Wall Street in London, oligarchs. Well, the people who own the Federal Reserve, the Rothschilds, the Warburgs, the Cecils. But you see, you have to understand something. The emperor has no clothes. They're bankrupt. They know it. And their attitude, and people don't want to face evil. They want to say, well, I'm against this. And when I confront a lot of Republicans on this, right, They want to say silly things about Bush, whatever. But look, they don't really want to face the fact that we're dealing with people who say they want to reduce the human population by billions. They're dealing with people who say we would rather risk World War III with Russia and China. It's called the conventional prompt global response. The people around Obama believe they can make a lightning conventional strike and wipe out with a first strike the nuclear weapons of Russia and China. They believe this.
Okay, let me ask a question. I think some of us were a little disturbed when you brought up the smiley blackface comment. I don't know how you meant it, but I think some of us did take offense at that. However you meant it, but I think it was a little uncalled for. But my question is about Wall Street. You mentioned vanquishing Wall Street a number of times. Are y'all opposed to private corporations? Can you hear me? Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Are you opposed to private corporations selling stock? Is that something that bothers you, or is it how it's done, or is it the?
It's how it's done. No, we're not opposed to that.
Okay, so private corporations selling their stock on the open market.
But sir,
where we can
it's
purchase.
all a fake now. It's a Bernie Madoff Enron system, and it's all coming down. It's not real.
Okay, but
it's not real.
If you guys were in power, you would still allow private corporations to sell stock.
But we're not going to have the government or the taxpayers support Enron and Bernie Madoff, which is what we've been doing.
Okay, well, I think we're getting a little off, but okay, but you'd be okay with
if the Federal Reserve was not putting out $75 billion a month, the euro would already be gone, the stock market would have already been going down, and you'd have a necessity to actually deal with reality.
So my 401 plan would be okay with LaRouche in power?
Not too easily, because it's been invested in some very worthless things, but we are going to have a government that's priority is to keep the people alive, not the corporations, vultures getting their blood.
Could I still buy 100 shares of General Motors if LaRouche was in power?
If we make sure that General Motors is still producing something.
So that's yes.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
We're going to have to go to rebuttals. We're running out of time. So let's give our speaker a good hand anyway. You deserve it. Anyway, now it's your turn to talk. So who wants to be first? You want to be first? All right, Erica is first. 5 minutes.
You just stop. 5 minutes. Okay, first of all, I want to say that the LaRouche people believe the British family controls the world drug trade, and the Queen personally commands the armed forces. This is something that they said. The U.S. Armed Forces worked with Jewish conspirators to pull off the 9/11 attacks to order to start war with Islam. The ACA contains provisions for death penalties that decide the fate of seriously ill people. The Beatles, I read this several places, the Beatles had no genuine musical talent, Mr. LaRouche says, and they were created by Britain's psychological warfare experts. AIDS was created, and I read this several times, and I saw Mr. LaRouche was quoted, that the AIDS was created by the Soviet Union or international funds, monetary funds, kind of back and forth, to those that have AIDS, and he wants to quarantine AIDS patients. British intelligence is furious that Obama failed to turn to us into a socialist state and will try to assassinate him. And he thinks that Jewish mothers cause their sons to be gay, and that Jews are appendage to Christianity and not so self-sustaining Judaism. It's not, and it could never exist without Christianity. I think they have a problem with Jews. Also LaRouche wrote in an essay, I read the essay, it says, can we imagine anything more viciously sadistic than the black ghetto mother? Maybe he was being funny. I didn't think it was funny. The morning news says that Kesha says the economy is secretly controlled by a group of financial institutions. She's paraded around Houston with pictures of Obama sporting a Hitler mustache. She's compared ACA to 1930s era Nazi eugenics, and she advocates increased NASA funding so Americans can use missiles to defend against asteroids and colonize Mars. She also made a cartoon video that she's singing to I can't remember the name of the movie, Supercalifragilistic. Well, she kind of makes this like really, they make this cartoon person of Obama being really, really ugly and nasty, and they start saying all the things they want to do. And one of the things that Miss Rogers says is, we suggest that Obama's doctor give him sodium pentothal, which is a drug they get. Yeah, I saw it. I saw the cartoon show. Heritage Foundation calls so we have a lot of groups that don't like them. The Heritage Foundation calls the LaRouche movement one of the strangest political groups in America, and Washington Monthly calls it a vast and bizarre vanity press. Even the John Birchers, that John Reese wrote that the LaRouche followers have been given blind obedience by their followers. There's a nonpartisan guy that investigates these groups, and he is the Political Research Associates. He's a paralegal vice president of the National Lawyers Guild Advisory Committee for the Center of Millennial Studies for Boston University. Could y'all be quiet? Is that y'all talking? No. Okay, good. Although often dismissed as bizarre, political cult, the LaRouche organization, and various forms are a fascist movement who pronouncements echo elements of the Nazi ideology. The Roushites, or I don't know, I think it's what they're called, combine anti-elitism. So he was speaking before that I guess the Democrats are the elites, which I don't see any of us looking very elite in this group. And really actually none of the Democrats I've ever met seem very elite to me. So I don't know what they're talking about, but they get that attention from people that seem somewhat, I'm guessing, I don't know, but seems like they're trying to get the attention of some kind of paranoid, insecure people. And they attack the environmentalists. He just mentioned about the environmentalists, feminists, leftists, gay men, lesbians, and labor organizers. Let's see. So the FBI file, I know he doesn't like the FBI, but I don't know that there's a better group unless it's what I think this man, Mr. Craig is saying that he doesn't believe in the FBI. Well, I don't know. It sounds like he just wants the LaRouche people. They're the only people that are right. And so he says the FBI says they're a clandestinely oriented group of schizophrenics that have a preoccupation with Nelson Rockefeller and the CIA. This group targeted United Auto Workers and other trade unions called Operation MOP, the Mop Up the Woodcock, referring to UAW President Leonard Woodcock. The Roushites, or LaRouche people, not only handed out pamphlets calling leadership as perverted, members of the unions were they called the members of the unions and their family and said, do you know your family member is gay? They call them not homos, but they're not gay, but faggots. There's a lot of stuff in here. And actually, when I was at the convention in Corpus Christi a couple of years ago, the Democratic they were standing, a bunch of them were young people were standing in a way that I couldn't get past them to get down the sidewalk. And they handed me a pamphlet and it said, LaRouche. And I said, no, thank you, and gave it back to him. And the guy started calling me, like swearing at me. And I stepped back because I just never saw anything like this. It's like a really angry group. And I just had, whatever. And then I stood there, and other people, the Democrats walking past him, were kind of repelled by him, and they wanted to get around him. And they started calling them faggots again. I mean, I don't know what this is all about. But anyway, this LaRouche guy was friends with a guy named Roy Frankenhauser, who was a leader of the Ku Klux Klan in Pennsylvania. He was associated with the Nazi Party and convicted of the school bus bombing in Michigan. And he was an advisor for Mr. LaRouche for 7 years in the 70s, and he turned informant for the FBI. I think that's probably all I wanted to say, and I guess that's it. I've done a lot of work, and you know what? You're not supposed to get up, you're supposed to talk. One other thing I want to say is nothing has to do with political organizations. It was everything I read was made sure that I did not get involved in any partisan politics. I mean, the Jews could say a lot about this guy. Okay, thank you.
Okay, who's next? All right.
All right. All I can tell you is, being a Democrat precinct chairman for 44 years and one of 24 early voting judges, I've never heard anything like this. I appreciate you inviting me, Erica. I was truly entertained. I feel like I was at the Comedy Corner. But to get back to some of the points that he made, this thing about impeach Obama. Obama doesn't make the laws. All he can do is veto or sign laws. It's the Congress and the Senate. So why don't they say impeach the Congress? They're the ones that are being the obstructionists, not the President of the United States. He has limited powers. And as far as I hear all this garbage about the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and all these different people. If you read Forbes 400, there's not a Rothschild on there, and there's only one Rockefeller, and he's not worth very many billion. And how they can say they control the world, if they controlled the world, those names would be on that list of the 400 wealthiest Americans, and it's not. As far as he lost me, as far as all of this power about future energy coming from Mars, and the only thing I really agree with him on, I really appreciate him pointing out how much China has invested in their infrastructure over there, but their people still, there's millions of them, they're dying from the smog over there. There's all sorts of problems. We are so blessed in this country to have fairly clean air, to have, thanks to the Democrats, to have a lot of advantages that people don't have. We have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. We have one of the highest per capita incomes in the country. There are 24 million people that starved to death in Africa last year. In this country, we have safety nets to prevent against that. And it just really bothers me as a Democrat whose families fought all their life for Hispanics, African Americans, women, all the things that the Democratic Party stands for. It's just none of these values are represented in this candidate. And I sat through 4 days of interview process with the Democratic organization I belong to, the Erica knows, and this person didn't even bother to come before us and interview. We had 4 solid days of full days of interviews, and never did this person come before us. We did have 2 other U.S. Senate candidates come before us today. But she certainly didn't show up. And there's no way she would have got our endorsement, so she knew it was wasting her time. But the Democratic Party has always stood for progressive values, those of the people who are not the billionaires and the millionaires, but the working men and women of this country, and it always will. And to me, this is almost like, it reminds me of, they really scare me, the LaRouche people. It's almost like Adolf Hitler coming before you to say, we're going to take care of everything. And everybody always tells me that the reason that Hitler came to power was because the economy had gotten so bad that people were desperate and they thought that this person would make a difference in their lives. Instead, he killed 7 million human beings. You know, to me, that's not what we're about in the Democratic Party, and that's not what America's about. America is a country who loves their people, who wants to give people a hand up, who wants to help those who are less fortunate, to try to give as many people jobs as possible. It's these people that, for whatever reason, they have these agendas and they want to control people's mind. It's almost like a cult, and it's really scary. Thank you.
Okay, who's next? You got 5 minutes.
I won't need 5 minutes. I came in here as a blank slate tonight, really not knowing much about LaRouche or what you guys are representing. What I had heard was that the LaRouche approach is hostile and combative and a little weird and crazy. It so happens that I agree with a lot of the points that you made tonight. So I'm kind of at a loss to figure out who your audience is in terms of who you're campaigning to, because I don't see how you could appeal to Democrats because you're talking about getting rid of Obama, and you've got all these other contrary objectives that most of the Democrats I know wouldn't buy. And you couldn't name parts of the Democratic platform that supposedly you're speaking to, that you're representing, that you would represent those Democratic voters, and you can't be appealing to the Republicans because you're talking about single-payer health care and funding education and NASA and all these other things, and you can't appeal to me. And I happen to agree with a lot of the things that you talked about because I don't respond to arrogance and hostility and condescension.
Okay, who's next? Ray, come on up here. No, I don't know. You're not the last, maybe.
I'm not the last? Who knows?
Close.
Well, one thing that was said right off the bat was that there are at least two philosophies or ideologies. Well, I don't know if there's two, but what does control much of the world right now and this country, it is indeed ideology. It's what people believe in their heart, in their gut, and that's what they go with. And there is one ideology that says that we need to have a big, big government. Everything begins and ends with government. Government can take care of all of the world's problems, and government will be the solution. It's what we need. They want more government to control every facet, every part of life. The other side says that like our country was formed for individuals and for individualisms, and that people will take care of people, and that whenever you have more government, government is usually the problem. It is not a solution. And individuals is what made this country what it is right now. You can say you don't like the way the Founding Fathers did it. You may not like the Constitution, but this is why we have a strong country. Right now, we have 92 million people who are not working. That number has come out in the last few days. That means everybody, that means a lot of us layabouts who are on Social Security, but the jobs are hard to find. And it is because of what government is doing. The ones who have jobs, many of them are being part-time. They cannot get a full-time job. Why is that? It is because of what government is doing. Is there income inequality? You better believe there's income inequality, and it is what the government is doing. It is driving people down from middle class to a lower class. And yes, there is going to be a gutting of a middle class. We have a slow economy. It is because of what the government is doing. It is hamstringing, it is strangling industry. This government is withholding energy. We need energy like any country in the world if we are going to go forward. We have got to have energy. And that's not just yours and my gasoline prices. And there is no reason, not one reason, why we cannot get the Keystone Pipeline except for politics. There is no other reason. There is no other reason. We are creating a dependent class, and the political left, what I was telling you about, desperately needs a permanent underclass. This government is creating debts that your grandchildren or great-grandchildren may not be able to pay off. Stimuluses that were supposed to create jobs didn't. A laser-like focus on jobs didn't. Nobody knows where the money went. We are destroying the best health care in this country. It is absolutely being destroyed. We are being weakened abroad. We're dumbing down and ruining our schools. There are trillions for poverty that go all the way back to Lyndon Johnson. Remember, this week we're talking about the 50th anniversary of what Lyndon Johnson said. We've spent, I think the number, it was 7 trillion. I don't know what it was. Who cares? A trillion here, a trillion there. 7 trillion. Poverty is just the same as it was in about 1965. That is because government got in the way. It is a crying shame. I have lost my own primary care doctor. He was probably in his early 60s. He saw the writing on the wall. He had many years left. He saw that he was not going to be able to carry on and do the kind of doctoring and practice because he was going to have the warm breath of government down his back, and he's getting out. In California, they're getting out by the thousands because there is no future. And doctors are going to be leaving. It has been a lie. Do you know what a lie is? When your politicians tell you that you'll be able to keep your doctor, that is a lie. It was in the Affordable Health Care Act that many people would lose their insurance policies. It was there, but we were told and we were lied to. That is an impeachable offense. High crimes and misdemeanors. It's a crying shame, folks. We are losing our country, and we're sitting around looking at iPhones, and thank you.
Okay, yes, someone else asked. We're running out of time, but come on up here. Be quick.
It's a sad tradition, but I do get up and speak when I miss the speaker. In LaRouche, from what I have had exposure to LaRouche, we have a big government person, and when you're considering solutions to the issues that we have before us in this country, I think the problem has been coming from both the right and the left. I videotaped a lecture given by a former union organizer, Terry Hayfield, speaking about the permanent revolution, of how we were being moved forward into a global economy by both parties, such people as the Heritage Foundation, and such elements as during Ronald Reagan's reign, if you will, establishing enterprise zones, free trade zones, and bringing in all these things which really erode national sovereignty and affect the individual. And what I would like to pose as a big looming question mark is how is more government, how is a LaRouche situation going to be anything but a continuation of what we've had already?
Sir, please take this. You're terribly mistaken if you weren't here, so.
We're practically out of time. I'll be the last one to talk, I think. Because anyway, just something to ponder on. Americans have long been quite happy with big government programs, for what it's worth, as long as they work. And they don't like failure, and they hate being misled. But what people really care about is results, and once our healthcare system is working, or our website is working, millions will realize what they're being fed by is largely bunk. I think that you'll find that out, that things are working out well. Was brought up here about the healthcare. The healthcare, 3.1 million of young adults gain coverage through their parents' plans. 6.8 million seniors are paying less for prescription drugs. 105 million Americans are paying less for preventative care. 105 million Americans are no longer subject to lifetime limits. 12 million Americans receive rebates from insurance companies. 12 million children with pre-existing conditions are no longer be denied coverage or charged more. So the point is that a big program, it is working. And people complain that the government's too big. I heard that tonight. If you put the responsibility to the government, they have to pay. The money has to go there too, and it is working. So this is something to think about. It's our government, and we're the ones that have to make it work. That's about all I have to say. Anyway, you want to say something? Come on up here. And then be quick, because he gets the last word, and we want to give him time to do that.
Yeah, I just want people to know that we don't have clean air. October 17th, 2013, World Health Organization declared outdoor air a carcinogen, okay? And that's, Texas is the largest polluter in the U.S. and the 7th in the world, okay? So the bottom line is Obama is not who he came into office being, because the oligarchy does have control. Finance does have control over what's going on. And so, yeah, there are some things that were attractive, but the messenger, I don't think did a good job, and I hope that he does not represent Kesha, because I think for myself as a Democrat, I am looking for somebody who can compete against John Cornyn. Thank you.
Okay, my friend, you get the last word.
Okay.
All right.
Let me apologize if I seem arrogant, but I had a long day and I was given this job at the last minute. But let me tell you something. I go out and talk to people every day, and I talk to people who voted for Obama, and I talk to Republicans all the time. And it's not true that, well, let me just say this. If you contrast the response that I've gotten in the last few months, especially since the government shut down, with Republicans to our message, they're not defending Boehner or anybody in the Republican Party. They're congressmen. They hate the Congress. They hate the Republicans. Most of the only ones who are defending the Republicans are the people who keep giving money to Karl Rove because they play golf with him. Okay? And the rest of them, the vast majority of people who work for a living who are Republicans, respond to the message that we have because their granddaddies had a job under Roosevelt and they know what we're talking about. And they know that something terrible is wrong with the country and that there's an oligarchy controlling both parties. They know it. It's apparent to them and most people. The other thing is that I'll tell you, there's more and more people who voted for Obama, who are actually much better than a lot of the Republicans because they wanted social justice and they got spit in the face. And they want to see something better for the future, and they know something terrible is happening and is about to happen, including a lot of young people who voted for Obama. So I go out and talk to people every day and take an informal public poll. And people come up who disagree with me and express their opinions all the time. It's not just people who agree with us that I talk to. okay? But let me just say something about all this stuff. It really is self-discrediting to quote Chip Burley and other people who were hired by Henry Kissinger and John Train, who was a Wall Street speculator, to set up the Get LaRouche Task Force. This was a real entity. Who's the former Attorney General who defended LaRouche? What's his name? The former Attorney General under, no, the former Attorney General under Johnson, the civil liberties guy. Any case, so he was LaRouche's attorney, and he said famously that, I'll remember his name in a minute, right? We're all getting old here. Ramsey Clark. Ramsey Clark, who defended LaRouche vociferously to get him out of prison, said that there's never been a person that he knows of, to his knowledge in U.S. history, that has more private and government money and effort spent of all kinds of people to persecute him than Lyndon LaRouche in entire U.S. history. So if you read the corporate-funded slanders and things, which they want, they have a slander for every person. He's an agent of the Pope, he's a communist, he's a fascist, he consorts with Nazis, and there's all these little twisty things that it's not just the FBI put together, all kinds of entities were put together with millions and millions of dollars throughout the 1970s and 80s to get LaRouche in prison, and they succeeded, and that's his badge of honor, that these people still fear him, and they fear Kesha even more. That people have to take this to heart, what I've been saying about the future. You can't live in the past and have all these little issues about the past, especially if your little issues come from people who you really don't like. Because you don't like LaRouche, you're going to take your information from people who control George Bush. That's not too smart. So the government has to be citizens who are thinking about their grandchildren, not big government, little government, these silly arguments about we're for less government or we're for more government. That's just a game of words play things. It's the right-wing, left-wing game. That's the French Parliament in 1789, and it was bad then and it's bad now. What are we doing, to go back to what I started with, to actually pursue a society where people can be creative in the image of the Creator, and money serves those God-given creative powers? That's the question, and many people, until they lose a lot and until certain people take off their mask and say, I really do want to kill you, they're not going to face it. But there are a lot of people out there, including a lot of Republicans, who before thought they just hated LaRouche, and including a lot of Democrats who before thought that they loved Obama, who are now coming to us. Kesha didn't get 80,000 votes and win the Democratic Party primary 2 times because she was faking it. Other people faked it and they lost. So, that's it.
Okay, we got to be out here by 9 o'clock. For what it's worth, we recongregate down at the Starbucks, so you're all welcome. And we get to work on our speaker if we want. He's welcome to come. We'll be down at Starbucks.
We need Starbucks tonight.
Oh, well, anyway, we're all going to go down there. Whoever wants to show up, come on down. We'll have some coffee, and you're more than welcome. And our speaker is welcome to come. We can work on him if we want. Whatever you want. It's up to you.
This is William, your videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like us, or follow us, and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call. So when visiting the Barbeck's restaurant, tell them you want your reservation to the next College of Complex class.